Hello, Just Community and partners. My name is Miguel Ortiz. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am very excited to be guiding you through today's training session. For the next 15 minutes, our theme will be to cover lower body office mobility. And as you can see here, I got a couple chairs with me. And whether you're in your office or the convenience of your own home, first thing I definitely want everybody to do is let's stand on up and get moving a little bit. So I know we've been sitting a little bit. We got a good 15 minutes, so let's get this rolling. First thing, if you're in the convenience of your own home and you can just walk around for about 30 seconds, do so. I got a little timer right here. And if you can't walk around, maybe you're in a cubicle, maybe you're wherever, can't leave the office, maybe you're just on a call and you're trying to squeeze this 15 minutes in, fantastic. Give me a couple marching high knees, just very light. You've been sitting down for a little bit, and we just want to get some blood flow going through the legs slightly. Now, with today's lower body mobility focus, the reason why I have my chairs is because, and we can stop with the marching, I want you to utilize these chairs to help with your stretches. Now, the reason why we're also keeping shoes on is because when we place our feet on any of the apparatuses, we want to make sure that our feet are comfortable. And the first stretch that I want you to do, if you can hold the end of a chair, we're going to start by bringing the bottom of our foot to the edge of the chair so we can get a good calf stretch all the way through the bottom of that calf, running from behind the Achilles, all the way through that back of that leg. Now, if your chair starts to slide or move, this is where holding on to it's going to be very important and being able to shift or lean forward. If your chair has a couple of rollers, maybe you just find one, hold the chair still, maybe you're holding it up top, and what you want to end up doing is just hinging the hip back. You can see that the ankle, even with a rolling chair, will allow pressure to go in so you can get a good stretch through the back of that leg. Now, I've only given you two different options here, and we just want to keep focusing on this one leg. Let's come on up and let's go back into that relieving hamstring and calf stretch as we're really trying to get back into the posterior part of the body and just loosen that up from the back. If we're sitting down all day, this muscle group, calves, hamstrings, it's all going to get shortened. So we want to start, again, as we continue, with the back of the hamstrings and calves right here. Let's go ahead and switch legs. Now, as we keep doing this, and depending on your chair will determine the amount of leverage you can kind of get throughout that calf and hamstring. If you're not getting as deep of a calf stretch, and continue focusing on that other leg, I got a timer going for when we can switch. But if you need to, I have a rack right here that can be very similar as the wall. You can put your foot up against the wall, as you can kind of see here. And now I can stand up a little bit closer to that wall, getting a deeper calf stretch. If you felt it on the chairs, fantastic. Let's continue to dig into that calf nice and easy, leaning up against whether the wall or you're using one of the bottom of the chairs to just sit back and loosen up that hamstring. Now, throughout me talking here, I definitely want you to embrace, feel, understand what's going on with each hamstring, how tight one may be over another. That's another very common theme that we tend to find when we're stretching, that one side is a little bit tighter than another. And sometimes we have residual pain on one side versus another. So as we're playing this discovery and loosening up the hamstrings and the calves right here, whether or not we're hinging over a little bit more or whether we're just digging into the calves and starting that focus to the back of the leg, we just want to loosen up the entire posterior system. That is the first thing that we want to be doing. So now that we've gotten done with the calves and some of the hamstrings and getting into these light hinging positions, utilizing our chair to just help loosen up the hips a little bit, loosen up the back of the calf, let's continue this by using the chair to get into a couple of lateral hinge positions. So I'm going to end up using this taller chair for this example. I'm going to place it right in front of me and get a little bit wider. Now, we don't want to get too wide just in case we're wearing some slacks. And just nonetheless, depending on our attire, we just don't want to get too deep into any crazy positions. What we want to do right here is leverage our weight forward onto our chair. Okay. If we're using a rolling chair, same thing. You can hold the rolling chair up top or a little bit higher. And all we want to do here is we want to start to bend one knee lightly so this leg is getting nice and straight. Now, from the side position, let me show you from the side. If I am bending one knee and I'm keeping the other leg straight, I'm looking for a good inner thigh stretch. And to enhance the inner thigh stretch without getting lower, I can just rotate away. So, just to show you what that looks like, as we start to dig into the inner thighs, we're just going to rotate away right here. Nice and smooth. Nice and smooth, rotating away, bending one knee, straining the other, using our chair, possibly even our desk, just to kind of lean into a little bit as we got our feet nice and stable, and just go back and forth digging into these inner thighs. Nice job earlier with playing this discovery with those calves and hamstrings as we use our bench, as we use our chair, our desk, just to loosen up that posterior. And now we're digging into the inner thighs. So we're still in this standing position before we use the chair to sit down and stretch lightly again, because there's a couple different moves we want to start getting into. And since we only have so much time, we want to keep our bodies moving as much as possible to allow good quality blood flow. But we also don't want to move so fast that we're not taking our time to really feel what the stretch is actually doing. Right? We don't want the body to keep thinking that it needs to remain tight. We want it to feel loose and limber. So we want the body to tighten up when we want it to stay loose when we need it to allow for quality movement and better activity. Very nice job right here. So now that we're done focusing on the inner thighs, we're going to go to the quads next. This one we can go back to a wall. And what I'm going to do is use my rack, my squat rack here, as a wall. So I'm going to put both hands flat on the wall. I'm going to stand close, and I'm going to take a nice big lunge step. When I take this lunge step, I'm actually going to be trying to drive my weight forward now into the wall, keeping my heel down and getting a big stretch through the front of that hip flexor, nice and easy, good bend, and then come on back. I'm also making sure my foot is behind. I'm making believe this is a wall straight across. So I'm really being sure not to go through my imaginary wall here. And I just want to bend back and forth nice and easy, stretching out the front of that hip. Your back leg's glute should be nice and tight. You're trying to lock that leg out so you're getting a nice good stretch. If I were to be standing laterally, I would be right here against the wall. Back leg is straight, and I'm just getting that nice good bend into that wall nice and easy, and getting a nice good stretch right through the front of that hip. Let's go ahead and switch sides. I'm gonna go back to the wall to get set up. Bingo, back leg extended, and I can do that nice lean into the wall, getting a good hip flexor stretch all the way throughout. Very nice job here, crew. Good job loosening up the hip flexors. Bingo, nicely done. Good leaning. You may even find yourself wanting to rotate a little bit, as depending on the movement that you're doing or what's kind of going on or where you may be tight, you may be finding that there's other, and I'm going to face you to do these next couple of examples, but you may find that as you lean forward into that hip flexor stretch, you might find that you want to rotate. You may want to end up opening up as you keep that hip flexor straight. So again, it would look like this if you were rotating out as you're driving forward and in. And the reason why that may happen is there may be some residual tightness going on in the front of the leg. So that's absolutely fantastic. The fact that you're aware enough to feel that and to then stretch it appropriately is a good thing. Okay, so now that we've gotten done with hip flexors, we've covered calves, we've covered a little bit of the hamstrings, we want to start to get into our hips and glutes. So this next one I'm going to show you could be a little bit advanced for some, and I'm going to then show you a modified version. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our seat or grab our bench and take a seat. Now, when we're in this position, if you need your desk again or something to hold on to, please do so, because what we want to do is cross one leg over the other and begin to slightly push down on that knee, which will give us a really good glute stretch on this side, trying to keep good posture. Now, if your chair is a little bit taller, right, so this one's a little bit taller, you could still have the same effect, and you can still do that same stretch. It may even be a little bit easier if you're taller to get the leg over. Also, if you're this tall but you're not feeling this stretch as you're pushing down, this is where you want to begin to leaning forward. So first thing, lower chair. If you can do the crossover stretch with good posture, push down, great. If you can do that, then let's lean in and get a nice, good residual glute stretch on that right hip. I got my right leg crossed over, so my right hip, as I continue to lean forward, nice and smooth. Bingo, nice job right here. Focusing on just loosening up that glute. Now, if we're having trouble completely bringing that leg over, this is what we're going to do to stretch out that hip. So the next thing we want to end up doing is, if we're having a little bit trouble getting into that position, and maybe stay on this side while I'm explaining this residual exercise that we can knock on out, what we want to end up doing is crossing the leg over. Sorry, if we're going to be standing or stretching out the right hip, I want you to then cross your left leg over your right, and I want you to slow down for that left foot, and that'll start to loosen up the hip and a lot of the IT band. What's probably happening is our inability to cross the leg over is being tightened by the IT band, so it's making it harder for us to get into that external position of the knee and then be able to rotate and get into that bent position. So if we can't do that, whatever side you want to stretch, cross the other leg over and then reach down and touch that toe. For those of us that can continue in that seated position with the leg crossed over, let's go ahead and switch sides. So we're going to be taking that left leg, bringing it up and across over that knee, sitting up nice and tall first and pushing down on that knee side. Ooh, I can tell that I'm much tighter on this side. I did a good little workout this morning. I'm a little bit sore already. So very nice job. You may notice that as well. Maybe we haven't done as many workouts, but we're noticing still a lot of tightness on one side more than another. And you may be saying to yourself, well, how does that make sense if I'm not doing necessarily as much work? Why may I be tight on that side? Well, there's something that we're doing residually on a daily basis that is clearly causing that. Maybe we take one step every day with our left foot every time we're going up the stairs. So if you compound that over time, you might be taking more steps with your left foot than you would your right, whether it's going up the stairs, stepping into the office, doing something, getting into your chair, the way we sit, how we lean. All of these factors play a significant role. So real quick, we have covered every muscle group within the legs that we've needed to. Let's go through this one more time so that we can really make sure we covered everything, just in case we missed something. First thing, we wanted to cover the calves. So we ended up putting the foot elevated onto some surface so that the toes can be up, whether or not it's a chair, and we wanted to stand up nice and tall so we feel that residual stretch going down through the calf. If we didn't feel that stretch, we wanted to go over to the wall, get your heel as close to the edge as possible, and then stand a lot closer to the wall if we can to get a deeper angle of the ankle, ensuring that we get a much deeper stretch. Okay, so we hit the calves really quick. So we're going to touch upon every muscle group as we revisit everything just one last time. So we hit the calves right here. Bingo, calves are nice and loose. Now we want to extend that residual calf stretch and go into the hamstrings. Let's go back to either of our benches, whether or not it's just a stool we're utilizing, and we're starting to hold the stool and sit the butt back so we get a nice good hamstring and calf stretch. We can alternate while we're here nice and easy, whether or not we're using the bench, using the side of our desk, just something to where the toes can be up again, and we can go through that calf and that nice good hamstring stretch. I'm switching up the chairs so that you guys can see how I'm working through this between different apparatuses, depending on what we're utilizing. Again, it could be our chair, it could be our bench, it could be our desk, whatever is around us that we're using. Fantastic job going through the hamstrings. We're now going to go back and cover the inner thighs. So go ahead and grab that bench. You're going to get nice, good, wide legs here. Both hands down and nice and smooth, bending side to side. We don't want to get too wide, right? Depending on what clothing attire we may be wearing, that might prevent us from getting into deeper ranges of motion. So as I bend one knee, I straighten the other, and I lightly rotate to the bent knee side. By bending and rotating, we're going to cause that hip to get a little bit of a deeper stretch in that inner thigh of the straightened leg. So whatever leg is straight, that's the side that we are trying to stretch. All right, just a couple more here on each side. This is definitely a good one if you got quite a bit of a tight lower back. Hips are just tight in general. Loosening up the inner thigh will go a very long way. Nice job right there. Last two stretches. We're now going to hit our hip flexor. So we're going to be getting up against our wall, back leg extended, and then we're driving that forward so we get a nice, good residual hip flexor stretch all the way through the high front end of that hip, possibly even lower into the quad. And we're just moving lightly in and out of that. I got my rack here as an imaginary wall. I'm keeping the back heel down as I'm going through this stretch nice and easy. Let's go ahead and switch legs. And I know we're moving pretty quickly through this last series, but we don't want to just be bouncing through things. Never necessarily do that. Throughout the entirety of this session today, we were focusing on getting in and out of these positions nice and easy, not necessarily going more than maybe 10 seconds on holding each movement or holding each stretch. And that is because we wanted to stay moving so that we can keep nice blood flow and making sure we're turning up our awareness when it comes to the stretches and loosening up the body. And for our very last one, go ahead and take a seat, and we're going to cross the leg over to get a nice good stretch in that hip. Starting up to stand up first, got a little ahead of myself, sit up first, push that knee down, and then lean forward and come on back. If you'd like, you can alternate and switch legs now to just see how everything is feeling and rolling. Maybe one side is still a little tighter than another. Maybe you need to spend a little bit more time on that tighter side. But other than that, this was a great 15-minute session that we just went through, covered the entirety of the legs. Thank you for joining me for our 15-minute lower body office mobility session. Hopefully, again, those legs are feeling a lot looser so you can be ready to take on the rest of your day. My name is Miguel, and we will see you next time right here for Just on Demand.